Turn, O virgin daughter of Israel, to these your highways by which you went. Welcome to Reunion Roadmap, a place to discover the people and communities along the highway of restoration for Israel's house of Joseph. Reunion Roadmap is a B'nai Yosef North America production. Be our guest for the next hour as we meet the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America. Hello, this is Safani Pappas with B'nai Yosef North America, and with me is Al McCarn, our executive director, and we have another guest for us, and this is a young man from your area, right?
Yes, my good friend Seena Koohestani, who is a senior at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, here in the city of Charlotte. As you'll hear from his interview, he grew up about an hour from here at the city of Albemarle, but he was born in Los Angeles. Seena's got a very interesting name. It's not traditional American name. That's because his family background is Iranian or Persian. His father and his grandfather came from Iran after the revolution that struck that country over 40 years ago. His mother's from California, and she is Chinese American. The reason that I had asked Seena to share his story is he has a testimony, I think, that is more common than we might expect. Having grown up in the church, his mother initially coming to an understanding of the Torah and its applicability to believers in Yeshua. And what kind of impact did this have on Seena as he's growing up? What you'll find is that it had a dramatic impact. It was one of a number of circumstances that caused him to walk away from our Heavenly Father and from his Son, our Messiah Yeshua. That happened when he went away to college. What happened next is the encouraging part of the story. And I think, Stefania, that our listeners will find it, as I said, not that uncommon, and there will be elements in it that I think will minister to a number of people.
And I think the parents out there who maybe even have homeschooled their children and their children have decided that they're going to go off to college, but that's met with trepidation, what's going to happen to them while they're there, this can give them some hope that they're not going to totally drift away, and the Father will bring them into the fold, even if there might be some rocky times.
Yes, that's the truth. It is a call, I think, a reminder to parents and grandparents, pray for these young people. And that's something that I will be saying quite a bit as we listen to Seena in this two-part interview that is going to run in this show and in our next show. So let's go on to, well, I'm not going anywhere. It's right here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and meet Seena Koohestani. And welcome back to another interview segment of Reunion Roadmap. We are in my hometown, Charlotte, North Carolina today, interviewing my friend Seena Koohestani. Seena, welcome to Reunion Roadmap.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, we met at the congregation we both attend, Founded in Truth Fellowship. You've got a very interesting testimony, and we'd like to just get your story. So tell our audience, first of all, a little bit about you. Where you're from and what do you do?
Sure. I was born in Los Angeles, but I grew up in Albemarle, North Carolina, a pretty small town about an hour away from Charlotte. I'm 22 years old. I'm a senior at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and I'm studying psychology with plans to get a PhD in clinical psychology.
That's pretty audacious.
Yeah, it feels like I'm on the path that he wants me to be on, though. So I know it's more of like a calling, if I can call it that.
How did you decide on psychology?
It took a while. That's actually, I guess, a big chunk of how I got saved. When I was in high school, I got pretty dissatisfied with my life. I didn't really know what I was doing, like what reason there was for my existence. And I started to think about that a little bit, but the more I thought about it, the more it bothered me. So I started to self-medicate with drugs and alcohol, and that provided a temporary relief from the misery I was feeling. Because I felt my life was without meaning. And then once I got to college, that trend continued and worsened just because I didn't have my parents around to, keep an eye on me. I didn't have to sneak out back to smoke something or, drink in my room after people had gone to sleep.
Yeah, it might be good if we find out about your parents and your family background. As I understand it, you come from a churched background, right?
Yes, I do come from a church background. So my dad grew up in Iran and moved to the United States during the revolution when he was 17 years old. Came from a Muslim background and then became an atheist when he arrived to the United States, just because he associated God with a lot of the killing that was going on in his country and a lot of the the horrible things that he saw. So he wanted no part of God as he knew him. My mom got saved at a young age and then walked away from the Lord in her teenage years, her late teens, because she was angry at him, to my understanding, and then eventually found her way back to him, met my dad, and then they got married. She eventually led him to the Lord. And so I grew up in a Pentecostal church. I also went to a Christian school from kindergarten through 8th grade. So I had the background knowledge. It's just, I guess the personal connection wasn't very strong. And I don't even know if it was present ever. Though I do recall, when I was like 6 or 7, my mom telling me the Bible stories, and I accepted, Christ as my Lord and Savior. It's just that either I strayed or never internalized what that meant. To be honest, I don't really know if I got saved when I was a 19-year-old, or if it was just being called back to him. If he was, there with me the whole time. But I don't really know if I'll be able to sort that one out. I have to put more thought into that, I suppose.
But in any case, you arrived at graduating high school and going to UNC Charlotte, looking for meaning in your life and not knowing exactly where to find it.
Yes, sir. So my first semester, I was skipping most of my classes, and I was very rarely sober. The only time I was ever really sober was when I had to go to work, because I worked in a meat department, and we were working with knives and sharp objects. I didn't want to hurt myself or lose my job because it was, I was paying for my own way, and I couldn't buy substances if I didn't have money. So my first semester I spent mainly just talking to other people to see what they were doing with their lives and why they were doing what they were doing, in order to see if it would give me some sense of what I should be doing with my own life, because I had no direction. But unfortunately, most of the people I talked to were very unhelpful to me. They would give me answers like, they were majoring in English because they enjoyed English. They didn't really have many long-term plans, and that was a little bit too chaotic for my liking. I wanted to have some solid long-term plans and know what I was doing with myself. I sort of viewed myself as a cog in a big machine, and like everyone, I believe, is a cog in the machine, and we're all interconnected and we're all sort of spinning. So if one cog is spinning really efficiently, it makes the lives of all the other cogs a little bit easier because they don't have to work as hard. So I was looking for what I was supposed to do with my life, and this is why I'm not really sure if I was unsaved or saved or what, because I believed in God's existence from a biblical perspective. It's just I didn't follow him, and I was angry at him. I kind of had the cosmic watchmaker approach, where I thought God was this all-powerful being who created the universe, and then he stepped away from it to kind of let it run on its own. And so I was really miserable and angry, and I thought that there's this all-powerful, supposedly all-loving God who's ignoring my problems, even though I'm sort of asking him for help. I'm in overcoming them, and I'm asking him what he wants me to do with my life. And I didn't really receive an answer, in the timing that I wanted. And so, that really frustrated me and didn't really improve the situation, I suppose. So my first semester was a disaster. My GPA was a 2.2. I failed one of the easiest classes you can take, Introduction to Sociology, which I had taken in high school. So I was already familiar with the material. It's just I wasn't going to classes. I remember I showed up to class one day, and the teacher was handing back the second test grades, and I hadn't even taken the first test, let alone the second test. So I was like, all right, well, I just got up and left and went home. And during that time, I was just thinking a lot about, not everyone was dealing with the problem that I was dealing with. So I thought other people must have something that I don't have. I need to figure out what it is that these people have in their lives that is keeping them from suffering and being miserable about whether or not they have meaning in their lives. And I'm not sure if they just maybe never stopped to consider it, or if they had already reconciled with some conclusion that they came to. So I went on to take the next semester off from college. I just worked full-time at the meat department in the Harris Teeter. I just felt like it was something I needed to do. I didn't tell my parents about it until after the deadline passed for, enrolling in the next semester. So I was just like, hey, by the way, I'm not going to college next semester. I'm just going to kind of work and figure out what I want to do with myself. And that's what I did. I just took the time off and I worked full time, and I spent less time more on putting a lot of intentional deep thought into stuff that I was good at, stuff that I enjoyed, and sort of like mentally cross-referencing where those things aligned to see if maybe there was some career out there or something I could do with my time and effort that was, that would be enjoyable and was an actual, job that existed. Because at the time I really just wanted to play a lot of video games, which doesn't really, in most cases, lead anywhere that I wanted to be anyway. So yeah, I worked full time, and I was praying a lot, even though I didn't really, again, the confusion, I'm not really sure if I was with him at that point or if I was, unsaved. I don't really know what to call it. It's still sort of ambiguous to me.
Sounds to me like the Lord just would not let you go.
Yeah, it was like that. It's like maybe what I did when I was 6 or 7 and I gave myself to him, maybe in that moment it was true and enough. And he let me stray to a certain point, and then kind of pulled the leash a little, pulled me back to him when I had experienced whatever he wanted me to experience. Because I guess looking back now, like when you're suffering, like just because I was really miserable and angry and I was not in a good place. When you're suffering without meaning, it really makes the suffering that much worse, because you're not doing it nobly. It's not for someone else. It's not for some greater purpose. It's just needless suffering. And so I was really upset, but looking back now, maybe it was for some greater purpose. Maybe now that not even maybe, I'm sure I learned a lot of valuable lessons that I'll be applying in my life in the future, just based on where I'm going career-wise.
So what turned you around?
I guess what turned me around was what turned me around was that he slowly revealed himself to me in ways that I could understand. Even though I wanted this really big fire on the mountaintop type of experience where, God himself floated down in my apartment and told me, like, hey, go do this with your life. Even though that's what I was craving and wanted, it's not what I got, but he showed me his will for me, I think, in ways that I could understand. And it was through a lot of the thinking about what I was supposed to be doing with my life and where he wanted me to be. I sort of came to understand that a field like psychology, where I could provide therapy, I suppose be a therapist, was the right field for me, just based on my own strengths as a person and my own interests. And so things changed pretty quickly after I got saved, because I gave myself, I accepted Christ as my Lord and Savior, and stopped most of the self-destructive habits that I had. I kept smoking cigarettes for about a year until a teacher of mine, I was taking a health psychology class, and he really hit hard how cigarettes are really bad for you. And I decided, there are health implications, but it's also like my body is a temple. I need to stop this one too. And so, since I got saved, it's really just been a very slow process of rooting out old habits and fixing qualities that I had, and sort of imbuing myself with ones that I craved. Like the fruit of the Spirit was one of the first things I started working on fostering in my own life. So I took a screenshot of just a website of the Fruit of the Spirit label, because I lacked most of those. I kept it as a background on my phone, so that anytime I opened my phone, I saw the fruit of the Spirit staring at me. And so in moments of hatred or lack of self-control, I could remind myself, like, these are the things I need to be working on. And through his guidance and help, I've been able to implement some of those in my life. I'm nowhere near a master of any of those, though it's an ongoing process. That's just how life is. But I'm much farther along than I was. So
you went to college, this angry young man, not sure about who God is or what his relationship with you is. You floundered for a year.
Yes, sir.
And somewhere in that process, it sounds to me that he reintroduced himself to you, and did so in a way that you could comprehend as, well, a young man just turning 20, I suppose. Right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so now you're back in school, and how did the psychology thing happen?
I started actually going for psychiatry. I wanted to go to medical school. But you're right. Like he did show himself to me in a way that I could understand. And so I thought I needed to be in medical school because my father's a physician, and he always wanted that for me. And, you know, kids tend to want to do what their parents do when they're kids. And I didn't disagree that psychiatry was a good fit for me. I thought psychiatry would be good because I'll be able to, you know, be a therapist. I'll also have an understanding of medicine and, you know, biological basis for mental illness. So, you know, why not? This seems like a good fit. And then chemistry happened, and I wasn't a huge fan of chemistry at all. I didn't like biology either. I didn't like any of the courses I was taking for the medical field track. And I found myself drawn to psychology. I took an introduction to psychology class my first semester, and I remember enjoying the material. I like the practical life application or life applicable lessons that could be learned from psychology. Whereas in biology, I was learning about, you know, potassium pumps, which wasn't something I could conceptualize and apply to my own life and apply to other people's lives. It was sort of hard to fuel my desire for self-improvement to be more Christ-like when I wasn't learning material in school that could be used for that end. And so I changed to psychology after 2 semesters, and I've been doing that since, and it's a perfect fit for me. It's my major, and UNC Charlotte, it's required that psychology majors have a minor, so I chose philosophy, which goes pretty hand in hand with my interests and with psychology. So it's been a good change. I've been enjoying it a lot. And I had a professor that I was taking a class with, the psychology of adjustment, and he recommended that I start working in a lab and doing research in order to just kind of get a notch on my belt for grad school or medical school or whatever future plans I wanted, because it's sort of difficult to work in the field of psychology if you only have a bachelor's degree. And so I took his advice and went online and found the list of professors that were on the psychology department's website. And there was one professor who I ended up working for, and she her research interests were very in line with my own. And she studies different types of goals that people can have towards others. They're called compassionate and self-image goals. And compassionate goals are basically all the kinds of goals that you want, and they lead to all the kinds of, you know, good qualities that a human being can have. And self-image goals is just the opposite. And I saw in myself everything listed as a self-image goal, like all the negative effects. It's what drew me to her, because she told me during the interview, she said that her research, she's found that people who are high in self-image goals work really hard to put up a front for other people and focus on getting what they want for themselves. So they're very self-driven. But paradoxically, she's found that the more people try to satisfy their own desires and needs, the more dissatisfied with their lives they become. And I was like, wow, that really resonated with me, because that's the exact position that I was in. I was when I was a freshman, I was willing to step on anyone I needed to in order to cheer myself up. That old phrase, misery loves company, really rang true for me, because I enjoyed making other people upset because it cheered me up in that moment. It's like the instant gratification of it. And it made me feel just slightly better just to see someone else as upset as I was. And I had a few moments where people sort of called me out on it. My little sister one time called me out on it, and she got very upset and told me that, you know, when I was feeling down, I liked to make other people feel down because I was trying to make myself feel better. And I hadn't really thought of it consciously until then. I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I do that. Like, I need to work on that. And so back to my professor, seeing her research so in line with my own experience was really encouraging. So I applied to her lab, and she told me, fill out some paperwork. And when I sent in the paperwork, she said, hey, I'll get back to you in about a week and a half. I said, great. And then she responded about 20 minutes later, and she's like, actually, hey, can you come in for an interview like tomorrow? And I said, yeah, sure. I can come in for an interview tomorrow. I'll be there at 9 a.m. So I showed up, and she and her graduate student who just recently finished her PhD, they interviewed me, and I just kind of told them what I was interested in, a little bit about my backstory, why my grades had tanked, and why there was such a strong upward trend afterward, because they were pretty curious about how someone goes from a 2.2 to having a lot of good grades following that. And I just kind of explained, like, I was in school without a purpose, and I found out what I wanted to do with my life. And it's not difficult to do hard work and pursue a task when you have a reason to do it. Mm-hmm. But work without a purpose is significantly harder to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been working in the lab since, and I thought it would just be another notch on the belt. But I ended up liking research. So I was working in her lab by myself a year ago over the summer, and it was really just a God thing because I got a lot of one-on-one instruction, and I learned so much in that summer. I learned more in that summer than I have in the time since, just because it was so focused. She didn't have to split her time between anything else. It was just me and her working every morning. And I'd work, until the work was done. And I worked really, really hard because I wanted to do my best, even if I didn't at first care about the research. It's just I got tired of having always been so mediocre. Like I settled for mediocrity, and it felt like for the first time I'm doing something that's really impactful. So I really wanted to work hard at this. And she noticed, and she encouraged me to get more involved with research. And that's when I started doing my own research. I started doing my own research the following semester. And I do research on meaning in life as a psychological construct because it hits close to home. And so I'm passionate about it and I care about it. And so, reading a bunch of studies on meaning in life doesn't actually feel all that cumbersome for me because I enjoy it.
And now we present Create in Me by Solomon O. Lopez and the Hebraism Music Project, available at Hebraism.org.
Create in me a clean heart, O Elohim, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Create in me a clean heart, O Elohim, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Let me hear of your joy and gladness. Please don't go. Wash me, oh yeah, whiter than the snow. Let my tongue sing aloud of your righteousness, O Elohim, of my deliverance, of my deliverance. Let me hear of your joy and gladness. Please don't go. Wash me, oh yeah, whiter than the snow. All of my days, create in me a clean heart, lift open Ali, oh, create in me a clean heart, create in me.
Hello and welcome to today's Midrash portion of the Reunion Roadmap. This is Barry Phillips in Virginia, along with fellow elder David Jones in Florida. David, I trust you're doing well today.
Shalom, brother. Doing great.
Awesome. Glad to hear. David, I've got a thought I need some help on. And it pertains to the word perspective. We all see life through a certain set of lens, a certain orientation, cultural perspective, the way that we were raised, things that we were taught as children in our raising, our schooling, our religious backgrounds. All of these things color our eyes as to how we see the world and the future of this world that is around us. Some of us have come out of whatever religious background that we had, whatever denominational orientation that we had, maybe some of us from nothing at all. And now that we've embraced this Hebraic root, focus, and perspective, it's a bit challenging at times in embracing the world around us to integrate our newfound perspective with everyone else's. The result of that has been that at times we've been angry that people do not, they don't appreciate our Shabbat keeping and therefore not understanding why we don't want to work on the Saturday, or we get frustrated that it's hard to find acceptable foods in our marketplaces, or our children go to school and they're challenged in what they can eat from the lunch programs. Family not having appreciation of our celebration of holidays and choices that we make. Man, it's a challenge. This present world, it's a challenge. But you know, when we put things in a proper perspective balance, are these not first world problems where we have choices to make in our marketplace instead of scrounging in the garbage dump for a bite to eat? That we have the ability to celebrate any feast day or holiday instead of wondering, will I survive till tomorrow? People in previously affluent countries like Venezuela used to live a very what's considered first world normal life, and now they're in the throes of violence and total upheaval, and from all our reports, some are even starving and don't get the medical care that they need any longer. Perspective. Are we not living like kings and dealing with kingly problems, trying to pay bills on exorbitant items that we've purchased when the rest of the world is suffering? Where would Yeshua have us be focused? And where do you think he would have us be considering in light of this?
Wow, that's pretty tough, Barry. I mean, we're supposed to be kingdom-minded, obviously. But what all does that mean is where we start to really walk it out and examine ourselves and examine our lives. I mean, are we looking at the weightier matters as we should? Or are we getting caught up on some of the details of the stuff?
Right.
We need to. The thing with the details, Yeshua never said the details were not important. What he said is, in doing the details, you've forgotten the weightier matters. These are the things you should have done, as well as doing what you're doing. So it's not just looking down and examining even just a little minutia of our life, but in the process of doing this, we kind of don't look out to see what we're supposed to be doing in an outward expression of our faith, not just an inward one. And that involves how we treat each other. And that involves what we say to each other, what we do with each other, and how we handle each other when we're saying things that we don't agree. which is big right now. I mean, just a differing opinion could be considered hate speech. No, I don't hate if I don't agree with you. I just don't agree with you.
Right.
And that's part of the problem that we have now, is where we have a ever increasing society that is desiring to move away from godliness. And are we in a place of trying to move toward what the Father desires for us, forgetting the reason why we're moving toward what He desires for us? It's kind of this rough cycle you get caught in, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You know, I was telling you a little while ago, my wife and I have an RV. You know, it's not huge, and it's something that we can use to get away on an occasional weekend. A pull behind, and it's very functional and usable to us, but it needs repair. And just trying to figure out, okay, where am I going to get the cash necessary to do the repair on this thing? What a kingly problem. I'm sorry, your RV has an issue. Well, bless your heart. I'm trying to make the house payment on my own home or a rent payment to my apartment, and I'm already behind a month or two. Or I'm struggling to pay my light bill, or I can't find enough money to put gas in my car. Wait a minute, you have a car? Is that not a kingly problem? Again, when we compare ourselves with second and third world living conditions, here in America, we need to realize how blessed we are. So if I have to leave my RV parked until it can be repaired, is that going to ruin my life? Well, it's an inconvenience and it's frustrating, but it's not the end of my world. I can live that way if I have to and if I need to. It's a matter of perspective. What's most vitally important? I think the scriptures would teach us in Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and His righteousness, and all of these other things will be added unto you.
You know, that's a good way to put it. Yeshua, he didn't, say these things are evil or wrong. He just said, seek first the kingdom. Father knows what you need, but seek first the kingdom. And so is our pursuit seeking His kingdom here, to let it be through us here. I mean, Yeshua said that you won't see the kingdom with your eyes. He was speaking to some he was having a hard time with. He said, you won't see the kingdom with your eyes because it's in you. Well, what does that mean? It means that it's not just something that we're just waiting for someday, somehow, somewhere. It's an aspect of being lived out among us right here, right now.
Yes.
And so if we're constantly looking at issues and problems and all these things, maybe our perspective is a little off. Maybe we need to start looking at the one who says he will provide in all things and supply all things and give us what we need. And if we're thinking He's not doing that, maybe we need to examine our perspective and to see what is really important, what is truly important, and what does He desire for us to show in our lives.
In everything that we do, whether it is just a daily routine, if it's an act of ministry, if it's an act of relaxation, taking a vacation, if it's the work that we do on a daily basis, there needs to be a way for us to have a perspective of kingdom orientation about it. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might as unto Yahweh. If I'm mowing my yard, a challenge for me is, what does this have to do with the kingdom? If I am taking my wife to dinner, what does this have to do with the kingdom? Not everything is immediately connected to where we say, well, this, obviously, if I'm feeding the poor or clothing the naked or teaching the word or leading worship, etc., that has an immediate connection. But the kingdom would also have me to care for the things that the Father has entrusted to me. That includes maintenance on my home, the property that I am responsible for, changing the oil in my vehicle. Wait a minute, that's not my vehicle, that's His vehicle. If I have a perspective that the vehicle belongs to my King and He has entrusted it to me with its care, therefore I need to keep it running to the best of my ability to honor Him. If I love my wife and I show her care and devotion and honor her with a meal out for her enjoyment, the face of my King is reflected in my wife's face. I'm honoring her. I'm treating her as a special gift that the Father has entrusted me with. There is a way to bring kingdom value, kingdom relevance, and perspective into every area of our lives, even if by comparison it is an extravagant life, as opposed to some that others in the world are living. But I should also be focused on caring for those who cannot care for themselves. Yeshua also said, you have the poor with you always. That's our challenge. If you have them with you, they're a responsibility. There needs to be some means of activity with a kingdom perspective that you give, you share, you encourage, you invest, you do something to make a difference in their lives as well.
Barry, the comment was made before we actually started recording, that, we've heard the expression, someone is so heavenly minded, they're no earthly good. We get caught in the idea of, being carnally minded and worried about the things of this world and just the things of survival and just living life here, that we forget about the kingdom. But we can get so caught up on studying the kingdom and searching the kingdom, and even that is selfish in a manner, in one degree, because it's still about us. But when we try to see the kingdom here, that's when it starts to show to others around us.
Right.
And I think that ties well with what you were just saying, that everything that we do should be an outreach of showing the kingdom here, not just for our sake, but for Him. I mean, doesn't Scripture say that do the good things, do the good works and the good deeds, so that when the people see the things that you are doing, they will glorify your Father in heaven?
Right.
So if we're not doing these things, are we truly showing and expressing His kingdom here?
Wow.
So it's our living, it's our life, it is shown in everything that we do. And we all have different personalities, and we can't tell somebody they have to do something or have our own personality, but we should all have the same goal to show the Father's heart.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Easier said than done at times, and we all get caught up in our world, our current challenges, and it's easy to get consumed with what's going on in us and around us. But I think the act of prayer, spending time in focus, hearing the Father's heart, we get sometimes gently, sometimes firmly reminded there's more to life than what you're seeing. You need to open your eyes to a little wider perspective and vision, and He challenges us to do that. May He challenge us to do that. May we see the world with His perspective and His understanding. I think that's the key. So, David, why don't you wrap us up and take us out?
Well, that's awesome, Barry. Guys, we love to hear your comments, questions, thoughts, concerns, and if there's a Red Rosh subject you'd like to hear about, let us know. Let us know what you're thinking. You can contact us at reunionroadmap@bneyyosefna.com. So Until next time, bless y'all. Shalom.
Shalom, everyone.
Here's Bill Green from Ruach Ministries in Brandon, Florida, singing his original composition, The Dove.
Try to forget it, but I won't let go of what's underneath. I'll trust in you, Father, keeping the faith. Oh, keeping the faith. I just want to be close. I just want to love. Fill me with your spirit. 'Cause I just want to be close. And I just want to love. Fill me with your spirit. And mark my life by the dove. Vessel is raging. I search deep with fear. It's there when I'm drowning. Your arms always there. So I just want to be close. I just want to love. Fill me with your spirit. 'Cause I just want to be close. I just want to love. Fill me with your spirit. And mark my life by the dove.
Well, that was Bill Green singing his song, The Dove. I really appreciate it. And I've said it before, Zephaniah, and we'll say it again. I really appreciate the talent that is coming up in this Hebraic awakening. Folks you may not have heard before, but people hadn't heard of Michael W. Smith or Keith Green at some point when they were young musicians just starting out. And I'm looking forward to how others will be raised up, maybe not to be headliners, but, just to sing and play their hearts. That's what I believe we're hearing with Bill Green and his song, The Dove, today. And earlier, Solomon Lopez, a song we've played before, Create in Me. And then we had Barry Phillips and David Jones talking to us about perspective, an interesting midrash, which I find it kind of sobering when we think about how we are looking at the problems in our lives. Zephaniah, you and I both know people who have considerable difficulties. It seems like there are always medical problems, financial problems, relationship issues, sometimes issues with the law. We know brethren from overseas who have trouble even just getting enough to eat and to drink. It does help us understand perspective. And why is it that someone is having difficulty, can't do what we expect them to do? Maybe that's where we learn to give grace. What do you think?
Yeah, and in fact, grace or mercy, I just heard somebody actually give a teaching about the difference between the misunderstanding of the word grace, where it means to give strength to somebody. So I would say mercy in this case, that we definitely need to give mercy to people and, allow them the opportunity to grow through the circumstances they're in. Because everything that the Father has, he has a tailor-made circumstance for each one of us to go through. And don't ever think that you're going to be somehow the rescuer when they're in the process, because that's what it is. It's a process that he has selected for them.
Exactly. Well, let's talk about the process that our friend Seena went through, as we've heard in this first half of his testimony. The perspective question does come into play, and we'll hear it again as he winds up his testimony next week, of understanding what's going through the minds and hearts and souls of others, particularly in this case, our children. Now, he's ended up in a career field you know very well.
Yes, I do have a master's degree in psychology. And to be honest with you, one has to have perspective, proper perspective. It's not an exact science, not like chemistry. And so you have to be aware of that. And also, as you're navigating through this, when you're a person of faith, you have to really examine certain things that are within that whole field. There's certain things that obviously what will happen is that their observations sometimes of a particular behavior might be correct, and they usually will put a label on it. Now, I'm not one into labels, but labels are there to try to shorten. It's like shorthand in writing, for instance. I'm going to give you a certain label for a particular behavior, and if I say that shortened label term that people have, now people know what the behavior, what goes with the behavior, what it's all about, etc. So what you have to do is you have to navigate through that. And what many times will happen if you don't go the route of labels, you have to be very careful, because you could actually scar a person for life. Mm. You have to be careful with that. It's like fear, for instance. Fear is one issue, but in psychology, they'll use a term. They won't necessarily say fear, but they'll say paranoia. Mm. Now, when you hear that word paranoia, most people will look at that term and have a different connotation when they hear about it versus the word fear.
This is something that we will continue talking about in the next show, because I'd like to get your thoughts about how a young follower of Yeshua can make an impact for good in this field, which has been your life's work for a long time. Well, that will do it for today's edition of Reunion Roadmap. Thank you for listening. On behalf of Zephaniah Pappas and Barry Phillips and David Jones, this is Al McCarn. Shavua Tov.
Thank you for joining us on Reunion Roadmap, a production of B'nai Yosef North America. Please come back next week for another visit with the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America.